Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For this session, we are actually going to be getting onto Pear Deck because it will be interactive. And so if you are able to kind of open up another window, so kind of have things side by side so that you're seeing my screen on one half, and then in another window, open up Pear Deck. So you will go to joinpd.com and then sign in with this code right here. I'll also drop this information in the chat. And by doing this, you will automatically get all of the slides after the presentation with all the links that I share, as well as whatever responses you share with us today. So if you could go ahead and go to joinpd.com and type in this code, that would be excellent. And I'm gonna just drop this in the chat. And welcome to everyone who's saying hi. So my name is Stacy Roshan. I am on Twitter at BuddyXO. I also have a blog that's techiemusings.com if you're interested. I am the Director of Innovation and Educational Technology at my school, and I work at a K-12 independent school. And we've been using WeVideo for just a couple of years now. It's been one of the tools. It was one of those tools that, like, boom, everybody got on and started using way more creatively than I thought. And I'm excited to share some of those stories with you today and just some other ideas for building connections with all of your learners. Continue moving on and ask you a question first. Where are you checking in from today, and what is your role? I'm going to just allow you to see, if you are in split screen, allow you to see how real-time Pear Deck is when you ask these questions so that I, as the teacher, can see all this coming in real time. So hi to everybody. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So I'm going to also move you to the next slide at this point. So, you know, we're going to be talking a lot about tools today, but I always like to start with just, you know, for me, what it is all about. And technology has allowed me to really get to know my students on this personal level and build relationships that I was never able to build in the same way before. And to me, that's what it's all about. And that's what I hope to share with you today, is really deepening those relationships and providing students this outlet. And for using WeVideo, it's really this creative outlet to demonstrate their understanding, to express their voice, for us to get to know them, and again, synthesize this knowledge in a different way and showcase it. So I'm gonna just start with a quick little bit about me. So as a student, I was very much that introverted student. I wanted to contribute, but I didn't always know how to contribute. And that is one of the biggest reasons that I've become so interested in ed tech. It has been a way for me as a teacher to allow those students who are like me, and also kids who just have a different preference for expressing their voice, expressing their thoughts. I can get to them in ways that I never was able to before. And so, you know, as a math teacher, there's a lot of times where I just want to hear how all different kids are solving a problem. I want to be able to showcase the different approaches and the different thought processes, and for us to celebrate that there's different ways to approach a problem. And technology has allowed me to bring so many more voices to the board. And that's what it's really all about for me. So, you know, we have kids with different processing speeds. We have kids who are quick to respond, who are always going to be the first ones to raise their hand. And then we have the kids who may never raise their hand. And so how do we provide a space for all of these kids to have their voice heard? To me, technology has been a big solution to that. And so this is not a video that I'm going to show right now, but if you're signed into the Pear Deck, you will get a link to this afterwards and you can watch the video if you're interested. I flipped my classroom to address this need that I had, and that being that I wanted more individualized time to work with students, more time for students to do group work. But how was I going to do that, especially in AP Calculus class when I had so much lecture to get through? And so flipping my classroom was a solution there. It took that very teacher-directed part. I was able to offload it to video. In my AP and honors classes, they watch that for homework, and then they come into the classroom ready to have full class discussion, conversation, to dive into some group work. And so this has been a major solution for me. And, you know, one of the ways that, again, video is so powerful, students can watch this video at home at their own pace. Some of my students watch it at 1.5 speed all the time because that's the pace that works for them. Some of them watch it at 1x speed and they have to watch every video 1.5 times, meaning there's certain sections they need to rewind and rewatch. And I'm giving them that opportunity. I'm putting that into their hands, whereas in a lecture, I can't do that. And so video has been very, very powerful in my classroom in that way. So again, this is a video you can watch afterwards. I send this home to parents at the beginning. It's my way of explaining to them what the flipped classroom is all about and my flipped classroom philosophy. And it's a way to build those trust and those relationships early and upfront. And that is one of my focuses today, to just talk about connections and to create great connections with our students. I do believe it starts with our parents. So this has been a way to help them get on board and for them to know me and to begin that trust process. And a major thing for my flipped classroom was moving a little bit from this passive video watching experience to making it more active. And so I do embed EdPuzzle questions into all of my videos. That gives me the opportunity to do a couple of things. First, like you can see right here on the screen, there are auto-graded questions. So the student on the spot has this little learning check, knows, well, I understood that, or you know what, I thought I was understanding what you were saying in the video, but really, maybe I need to rewind right here. It also gives me that feedback before I even walk into the classroom. I know what students need from me the most in classroom the next day. The other thing is there's short answer questions, and I always leave space for short answer questions. Sometimes they're as general as, at the end of the video, what are 2 major takeaways? What is something you struggled with that you still need help with? So I know that I can address that in class and students don't need to remember their question because they'll forget it by the time they come to class. It's a way to offload what's in their brain onto this video, right? And then the third piece is I can see not only have students completed the video, but like I had mentioned before, I can see if students have watched the video, like I can see if they've watched multiple sections of the video twice or just once, and I can see how long a video is taking them to get to know them and their learning style even better. And so that brings me to another video that, again, I'm just leaving some resources for you if you are interested in exploring them later. This is a video that I created to explain our approach to EdTech at my school. And one of the central things here is creating a safe environment for all of our students to be able to express their voice and build their confidence. And there's a variety of tools that we really rely on as a school. Pear Deck is one of them, which I'm showing you today. EdPuzzle is another, which I just showed you. Flipgrid is another, and then WeVideo is the other that really allows our students to demonstrate their understandings in a creative way, and for everyone, again, to be able to really express their most creative voice. So if you're interested, this is another video that you'll be able to watch afterwards. As soon as the session closes, you will get all of these slides if you've signed into the Pear Deck. And so one of the things that is really important to me, especially as schools are, considering opening remotely, is to build in some of these getting to know you activities to also introduce the tools to your classes. I think that the tools, I think oftentimes we say, well, kids, they are digital natives, like they got the stuff figured out, they know the tools better than we do as teachers. The reality is that it can also be overwhelming to them when we have them logging into so many different things. And so I think that it's very important in the first month of school to in a very friendly way, introduce these tools to our students and maybe bake in some opportunities to also get to know the students and for them to get to know us. So if I'm a math teacher, which I am a math teacher, so as a math teacher, introducing some of these tools in a way that is not math heavy, but more of a getting to know you activity. So when we do our first EdPuzzle, for example, I can make a video that's a getting to know me and all about your teacher, and that's the first way that they watch the EdPuzzle, so they can get used to this new tool without feeling like I'm learning all of this math, I'm trying to learn this new tool. How do we get kids comfortable with the routines and the tools, and also remember that in this first month, we need to be very gentle and kind in rolling out some of this new technology to them so that it can be a really positive experience for them up front, so that as we ramp up our usage of these tools, it continues to feel friendly to them. So this is just one idea for something that I'm going to be doing at the beginning of school, a little getting to know you activity, using WeVideo to present something about myself, but then using EdPuzzle to embed the questions along the way so that they get used to EdPuzzle, which is something that we are going to use all year long. And then that will be their way of sharing something a bit about themselves, because I'll ask them questions along the way that are related to them. And so I'll get to know them a bit. And now I just wanted to show this. This is like the simplest example of all times, but one thing that I often hear is, like maybe I have a group of teachers that are working together in a team, and one of those teachers is super tech savvy and the other one is just really not. And so, sometimes you see this interaction where the one who's really tech savvy creates a lot of the materials and then they still use it in their team class. But how can we get all the teachers into this one place, no matter what their comfort level is with the technology? So one thing that's been interesting, and I've had several very successful use cases of this, and that's why I want to share it, is doing something as simple as, say you're making a flipped classroom lesson and you want to be able to do this in a very easy way on a teaching team. Have two different teachers contribute their voice to this one lesson, but you want to be able to work on this asynchronously. You can easily do that by creating a Google Slides show together, right? And then instead of having two people really create in the WeVideo, if that's difficult for one of the teachers, just have them create the voice memos on their phone, or one of my favorite apps, I use this with students all the time too, is 123apps.com, and there's a voice recorder right in there. It automatically makes an MP3 file, which is what you need for WeVideo. And so then you can have two different teachers recording their different slides and make one flipped classroom video. This has been a very successful way for us to create multiple different videos for different comfort levels. And so, the person who's very comfortable with WeVideo can be the one who's in charge of putting everything into the WeVideo. And now I can still get that other teacher who might not be so interested in learning about WeVideo at the very beginning of the year. They have a lot of stuff going on, but still their voice can be heard on this flipped classroom lesson. So this is one way to kind of make that collaboration a bit easier if one of the people on your teaching team isn't so comfortable using WeVideo. It's also a way that I've worked with my college counseling team. I was helping them create some of these. Now they're totally doing them on their own. So there's a variety of ways that you might be able to do that, even if you are a tech coordinator in a role similar to mine. Say your principal wants to create some of these flipped lessons for faculty meetings because we can't all sit together in one faculty meeting, this could be a great way to ask them to just use the voice recorder, and then you can kind of compile it for them. WeVideo is simple. It really is. Everybody can get on it. But again, how do we make these things a little bit more friendly at the beginning of the year so we're sure that this great content is getting out there? This is one of those ways. So I'm going to pause my talking for a second. Go ahead and drag your dot to tell me how you're feeling. And I'm going to check the chat to see what things are popping up there. Yeah, good question. The collaborative power is now definitely going to be available in WeVideo. Yesterday they announced, the real-time collaboration is coming in September, which is going to be super. I think that's going to be so helpful. So that should be fantastic. Beyond that, I know that presenting WeVideo to some people at the beginning of the year would be a lot. And so if I kind of onboard, in my role, if I onboard a group of teachers who can kind of be my pioneers in that and have a way to still allow some of the teachers who just need a bit more time to get on, a way to contribute their voice, that's kind of something that I was able to solve through that. Okay, great. So most people are okay, so we'll keep going. So I just wanted to show a couple of student examples of projects that have worked well for us. And again, this emphasis here on this project that they take this knowledge that they had been getting, in this example, it was in their food sciences class, and they're able to really creatively synthesize the material that they were learning and showcase through this little cooking show that they put together, and then they created this WeVideo. So I'm going to show this right now. There you go.
Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
Hi, I'm Emma, and today we're going to be making soft pretzels and showing you guys the science behind it. Stay tuned.
They're turning the sugars into carbon dioxide.
Through fermentation.
So you get the point of the video, but it was such a simple way to do this, and that's what we've loved. It's so simple. Students are able to do this collaboratively. As we have already said, the new collaboration features are going to take it up a notch. In this case, different students were responsible for different pieces, and they put those clips together, so they were still able to work collaboratively on this project. But it was just such a fun way to get them to express what they were learning in class, and they really talked about the science behind it as you go on in this. And they put together this fun cooking show, and you could see a lot of them were definitely getting inspiration from like YouTubers who do cooking shows and types of things like that. And it was just really a fun way for them to put a fun spin on it. Also, it's a way to, again, get to know their personalities a bit better. And I think that's the power of doing projects in this way. We get to see a whole nother side of students, and we get to know them on a whole nother level. And sometimes we really get to see their interests, sometimes, their artwork or whatever it may be. And so I wrote a book called Tech with Heart, and I just wanted to kind of throw this in right here because one of the biggest things for me is like this idea of the quiet voices in our classroom. How are we hearing from them? How are we providing an opportunity for them to really make sure that their voice is heard? So as I started with at the beginning, I was this quiet kid in the classroom. I had something to say, but I didn't always have the voice to express myself. And sometimes it was just a matter of like, I didn't, it wasn't even that I was scared to speak up in the classroom. Sometimes I just didn't, it wasn't the right environment for me. Sometimes I just needed time to think or to be able to kind of draft a response before I said that response aloud. That's something very big for me. And, you know, through something like WeVideo Project, now kids have that time. They have the time to really bring their best voice to this project. And, you know, maybe that's artistically, maybe it is just through, you know, saying something aloud. I think it's always so interesting to me how sometimes through video, like you hear kids just talking so long. They actually are verbalizing in such a different way than they're ever able to do in the classroom. And I believe it's that when we give kids the platform that they are very comfortable expressing their voice in, well, we're able to hear from them in totally different ways. And sometimes that's a matter of them being able to do it at home. Sometimes it's a matter of them being able to record, watch themselves re-record, and do it over again. And sometimes it's just that they're not in the middle of a classroom battling with a louder voice there. And so this is a theme throughout, and one of the reasons that I think that it's so important that we embed activities and assessments that are done in an alternative way, such as through WeVideo. And so here's just an example of that in action. I'm not going to show this one, but this was the power of podcasting speeches. And why I highlighted this one and wanted to share it with you today is because this teacher, after they did this activity, the one that they highlighted was the quietest kid in her class. And this project that she did with them, that they did through WeVideo, was the first time she had really heard this student speak up in this way. And it was the best project submitted. And it changed their relationship because she was able to hear this powerful voice that she had never heard before. And so, you know, oftentimes I think it's easy to think that the kid who's quiet in the classroom might not be as verbal. And over and over and over again, I've seen through using Flipgrid, through using WeVideo, through using them together, and I'm going to talk more about how we use them together, that that's not the case. It's not just that they're less verbal. It's just that we didn't give them the platform that they were really comfortable with in expressing their voice. And so how can we allow that? So I said I'm going to talk a little bit about how we mash these two things together and why. So Flipgrid, of course, is a video platform where we can have these video discussions. But what we like to do a lot is use WeVideo to have students actually create these projects. So create a 5 to 10 minute project where they're able to add in all the rich assets that are available in WeVideo. So, you know, all the images that are there and the media that's there, the video that's there, being able to bring in text, being able to bring in video from their world, being able to create this really nice, rich video project in WeVideo, but then they actually post it to Flipgrid so that we can have a conversation around it asynchronously. So everybody will post their project to the Flipgrid, and then the task will be to go ahead and watch 1 or 2 classmates' videos and send a reply to them right in Flipgrid so that it can become a real conversation. Everybody is watching each other's work, and it's interactive, that you're commenting on it, that you're talking about it. So it's not just that you watch the video. So in this one, you can see that they did this project, the geography of breakfast, and then 4 different students had replied to this, so that, again, it becomes a little bit more interactive, and students are all watching each other. It's not just that we're sitting and watching, but they're actually interacting with their classmates. So how are you feeling so far? And I'll take a pause to also look back at the chat and see. I agree, like in the online, when we were purely remote, just having these video elements was a lifesaver in terms of, and if you have a question, please go ahead and leave it in the chat right now. I'm gonna pause. I see a couple of questions, people have questions. It was such a lifesaver to be able to just see my students and hear from them. I mean, we were doing Google Meets 4 days a week. or 3 days a week, which was great, but I was not hearing from every student at all through the Google Meet. And so giving these projects once a week, I either had them do something in, they could use WeVideo, they could do a screencast in that too, which is super great, especially for math classes, or a Flipgrid assignment where they could talk things out with me. It just kept us connected. How does one get started like a first-time teacher? So I think that question, is that related to WeVideo? For me, how I get our teachers started with WeVideo is very simply, we all log in, we all do a project together. So I usually start it with teachers creating one simple project in there, and I have them use the storyboard mode, which is a bit simpler. So I can loop back to that at the end. The storyboard mode is usually how I get people started in WeVideo, and then we get into the more advanced editor. We do the same thing in the classroom, especially with our 9th grade students. We usually start them in the storyboard mode, so that's like they just insert little clips. There's not this big, huge editor there. And that's been the friendliest way to get everybody started on this for us. How do you embed EdPuzzle into a Pear Deck? So most of the time I keep those two separate. If I'm just doing a video where I want students to just watch the video and bake in some questions into that, I just have them watch the whole thing in EdPuzzle. So I don't actually embed the EdPuzzle into the Pear Deck, though you can. There is, I have my Pear Deck open, there's a website type slide right here. So you would just click on the website slide and you can paste in the URL of the EdPuzzle. But usually if I'm making, say I'm making an instructional video in WeVideo, then I just share that video to Google Drive and then pull that into EdPuzzle. You can share it to Google Drive, you can share it to YouTube, you can share it as a MP4 file. Are there any other questions that I'm missing? Do I do all my own artwork? Most of this artwork in my presentation is actually from Pear Deck. So they have all these templates in here, and I start with some of them, and then see, they have great artwork. And so I just use this, and then I change the question and I pull it in. So that's my tip to getting good artwork. So this next project that I wanted to show was actually getting students more used to different things in Google Slides. And so the teacher of this class, a middle school class, decided to really keep the focus on some of the Google Slides things that they wanted to teach, but make an animation project. And then, in addition, have students create a WeVideo project so that it could become an actual video, and it was about a cause. So in this case, our students were talking about recycling. So I'm going to show you this project. And this was done by a middle school student. So what I love about projects like this are that, it's not just about like, okay, let's go to Google Slides and learn some Google Slides school skills that you need to know, because there's no excitement in that, right? And so in this project, students were able to talk about a cause. So the purpose of this project was about recycling, and students could get really into it. They really took on a stance on this, and they created very powerful projects around that. But then they could also get really, really creative in creating their WeVideo and making this into a full video for the class to enjoy. And this was definitely one of the best ones that was done. But you could see all different levels of interest in this type of thing. And so it wasn't just about presenting like, okay, here's a new skill you're gonna learn, Google Slides, here's how you do this and this and this. It brought a whole new level of creativity to the project. And also they were learning about something that they were doing, you know, a student's passion in this one in recycling. You could do other types of things. One kid even did something about how they study for a test, and they taught that to the rest of their classmates, which is just so fun. When would you normally get to see a student present about that? Probably not. But you know, you give students the creative freedom and you get to know so much more about them. And then this other project this is something that we've done in a number of classes, PSAs in WeVideo. Again, a way for those quieter students to really step up with their voiceover. And we've seen that over and over again. That's like, wow, you hear a whole different voice from the kid. And then also giving, instead of just having this class where it's like all students come to the front of the room and the whole class, or, you know, usually you have a couple of class days where you have to have presentations and everybody's just sitting and watching while the rest of the class, you know, going one by one to the front of the room to present. Now we're able to do it in a way that gives them more creation time, because the presenting time, they can watch some of these videos for home. And again, that's where we can interact with the Flipgrid to make sure that students have watched a couple of their classmates' videos and learned from them, and then they're able to actually interact with some of those videos. So again, it's like a way to give more time for creation instead of having 2 class periods of presentations at the board. So that's been a very awesome way to, again, allow students to create, to express their voice in all different ways, but also to free up more time for the creation activity. And then this last one is just the green screening. Kids have so much fun with green screen, and this is such a simple one where students in Spanish class did a little news broadcast. But the green screen feature in WeVideo is so simple, and it's always a hit, even in high school. And so I just love that one, and I'm very excited about the new collaboration features, because this one, when students did it, you know, when they were working on this together, which they were doing all of these in groups, they had to work on the separate edits. So now with the real-time collaboration, that's going to take this to the next level. And I'm really excited to see what kids come up with in this year ahead when they have that available to them. But for any language classes, WeVideo is so powerful to allow students to do that conversation, to be able to also hear themselves back, to have that playback so that they can hear their language skills progress and evolve. That's been very helpful. And then just bringing in the green screen, it's so simple and it brings up an element of fun. So just again, to recap this thing that I hope has been expressed as one of the most important things, is just how can we hear from all our different learners and give them that platform where their voice can shine. Even those kids who need that sit and think time, for those kids who might be intimidated in the classroom, for those kids who just might need to record and re-record or script a response, and also for them to have a variety of ways to really contribute to this conversation, so that it's not just in the classroom when they can raise their hand. Especially as we move remote, I think we all experience this, that even our kids who are very vocal in the classroom, some of them on a Google Meet or a Zoom call, became very quiet. And you know, you think it's competing for attention or energy or to be able to be the next one who's called on in the classroom. It's even harder in a Google Meet or a Zoom call when, you know, your voice is drowned out if somebody's trying to talk at the same time as you are. So it's more important now than ever, I believe, to really give students a variety of ways to share. So I'm going to ask you how you're feeling now. So I wanted you to be able to just experience that there's also a drawing slide type in Pear Deck. So let's see if some people go ahead and draw their smiley face. So there's a couple different views in here. I can see one by one. I think only one person has written. I can also see a grid view like this. I can see all different responses like this. And then there's also an overlaid view where everybody's stacked one on top of one another, which can be great for labeling, can be great for math class when we're drawing graphs and so forth. So there's different views. And this is another way that I can hear from all different students and check in with them, especially if we're in a Google Meet call or if we're in a Zoom and I just want to see how everybody's doing. I can continually ask questions like this. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a little bit. I want to leave time for Q&A also, but I always like to give a couple of minutes. So before I move on, I'm going to allow you to have 3 minutes to just go ahead, and I'm going to set a timer. You can do that in Pear Deck also. So if I hold down this lock screen, I can set a 3-minute timer, and I'm going to leave 3 full minutes here for you to jot down any notes, any ideas that really resonated with you today. I'm not going to show the responses here, so this will just be available to you afterwards. But I think it's so important, you know, in the moment while we have ideas flooding, or maybe if something resonated with you, to take a moment to jot it down. Otherwise, you know, sometimes we forget it, or we might be going on to the next session and we don't have time to synthesize our notes. So I want to give you that time right now. So you'll have 2.5 more minutes. If you've written something and you have a question, please leave that in the chat so that I can answer those. Counting down on the timer, and then I'm going to go into the Q&A. So you get to see one more thing on your screen. If you look at it, you'll see that your Pear Deck screen, it's been locked. So that's a way to bring the focus and the attention back to my screen. That's what I use all the time. And you can lock and unlock the screens just like this. And so that's my cue to students. All right, let's focus back on my screen. And at this point, I would normally show the responses and we would talk about all of them. Or sometimes, like this question, I'll let students know this one is one I'm not going to project. So anything that you want to write to yourself or to me, I will see this afterwards and I'll review all your responses afterwards. I'm telling this to my class. And so that would be a way for them to tell me something that they need in a more private setting. And I like to always provide that opportunity also. And so I just wanted to close with this quote. If we empower students with the resources they need and coach them through the process of using these tools, then students can take ownership for their learning, and that's where the magic happens. And I think that WeVideo is such a powerful tool on this end in really, you know, giving students, putting that creation into their hands so that they can now take ownership of synthesizing their knowledge, of showcasing their knowledge, and really getting creative with it. And I think that's when we get to really know them on a whole new level. So powerful. And so I'm going to go back to the chat and answer some of the questions. You can find my contact information here. If you are on Twitter, please connect with me. I'm at BuddyXO. I love chatting things out on Twitter. And so let's get into some of the questions. So one of the questions, and I did want to come back, it was asked also, how do I do this more in primary grades? And so one of the things that, you know, I had mentioned before was a storyboard mode. So if you're in WeVideo and you switch to storyboard, this is what we use in the more primary grades also. And it's just a much simpler mode where they can go ahead and they can choose a theme that they like. So they choose one of the themes, use this theme, and then they can drag in any of the videos that they have. They can change the title, and it's just much, much simpler for them to get going and get started. And another great thing about this is sometimes we just have them drag in a bunch of visuals and then they do a voiceover right in here, and that can be just excellent. So this is usually the way that we get started, and It also works on the iPads, which we have iPads for our lower school, and that is how I always get kids started. And then if they start in this this mode, and don't forget, there's just this rich stock media in here. There's so much stuff. So let's see a picture of a dog and something. So you just literally drag and drop it like that, drag and drop it, and then the transitions are whatever theme that you're on. You can change some of those. You can change the duration of those if you want. So you get some customization here, but it's as simple as that. So that's usually how I get them started. We find that's much easier than the editor mode at the beginning. And then they can always switch back to the timeline mode, and they can further refine this. And, you know, as they get used to it, that's sometimes what they do. And then they can, you know, build on the multiple tracks and all of that. And then the tutorials, it was dropped in the chat that, yes, WeVideo has some of the best tutorials available in their academy. So it's great, great suggestion there. Yeah, the green screen, you really just, as long as the kids are against some type of a solid background, and then we usually, you know, like you can find some of them in here just by typing in green screen, and that's where you saw some of those other visuals that were in there before. So usually they just use something like this, so we actually just take it from the asset library, and then they pull that in. I'm not going to demo the whole thing because I have these clips in the wrong order, and then you would change the transparency, and I won't show how the whole green screen works, but yeah, we just pull in so much of this, and then the kids at home, even if they're in front of like a blackboard, it works very well. It just, you want it to be some solid screen. So it's much simpler than it seems. All right, I'm gonna go back to the questions because I'm having a hard time identifying the questions in the chat right now. Timer feature in Pear Deck. That is just you hold down lock screens, and you have 3 options: a 30-second, a 1-minute, and a 3-minute timer. And you can set any of those just like that. What settings do you suggest for younger kids? Okay, yes, I think I answered that, hopefully. Let me see if there were any questions left in here. Were there any major questions that were identified that I have missed here? Go ahead and chat it in again if I missed it. What would the first day of school look like with this? So the way that I'm thinking about the first day of school is really to have, I'm going to make a WeVideo presentation with things about myself so that I can get students to know me and a little bit about me. So that could be as simple as creating a slideshow. So if you're new to WeVideo, that's really what I would recommend, is that you go into the storyboard mode and you start there as well. There are templates that are available in, I'm gonna discard this one. If you go to the templates, those are already available in the WeVideo library. So you might wanna pick one of these just to introduce yourselves. There's a variety of different ones available. But I really am gonna just start in storyboard mode, start with something very simple. Here's a little bit about me. And personally, I'm going to pull this into an EdPuzzle so that I can get students used to the EdPuzzle for the first time. And then all their math homework is going to be in EdPuzzle. So my reason for that is my first month of school is going to focus on routines and building really good routines for the students that we're going to use all year long. So I'm lucky that I have taught a purely online class for a couple of years before this. And what I always did was my first unit, an actual unit, was orientation. And so we were math light, but kind of like routine heavy to get students used to using some of these things. And so, you know, at the beginning, I used the WeVideo as a creation tool. And then as we got more used to things, as kids got better with their math reasoning and talking things out, then I introduced WeVideo to them. So that's like my approach there. It's just like this ramped up thing where we are doing one thing at a time, getting kids used to one tool at a time, making them feel comfortable with it. So my approach in the first month is just like I will be creating in WeVideo. Again, I'm a math teacher, so depending on what subject you're doing, you might need this right away in your class. I'm going to allow students to really get to know me through it, and it's a great tool for creating flipped classroom lessons. Hopefully I answered this question, but just in case I didn't, I'm going to say it one more time. That's a storyboard mode. So if you're in any video, you can go up to the menu bar and switch to storyboard. Seems like PowerPoints aren't a thing with this anymore. Is that true? Good question. So it's funny because the first example that I showed, a lot of people were still using like Google Slides, and then they pull it into, if you save your Google Slides as a PDF, you can pull it into WeVideo, and each, it's so great. Each slide actually becomes a different image, and then you can do a voiceover through this. So you can turn any PowerPoint or Google Slides presentation into a video. That's what I'm trying to say. So you can make it a fully interactive, flipped lesson. Yes. So somebody, I think Carol answered that question there too. All right. Thank you guys so much. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas for the beginning of the year. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. As soon as I close the session, you are going to get all of the slides. It's going to come to you as a Google Doc, and you can certainly, that Google Doc is going to be shared with me and with you, so you'll see my email address through that, and you can feel free to reach out to contact me. The videos that you saw here will be embedded into the slides that you're going to get, so you can watch them later if you would like to. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I hope you stick on for the rest of this awesome conference that WeVideo has put together. It's been great. I've been learning so much.